Many moons ago, a powerful and perhaps foolish creator birthed 4 brothers onto the land known as Aegis, the children of a single man and woman. They were Malin, an elf, Krug, an orc, Horan, a human, and Urgwal, a dwarf. These brothers then spread out across the 4 corners of the realm and created unique civilizations to house and protect their kin. But after hundreds of years of peace, the creator let loose a terrible foe onto the land. Iblis, as he was named, was a daemon. He detested the splendor of the 4 brothers and soon became jealous of their fame. He disguised himself as a man and befriended each of the brothers so that he might prey upon their desires. He offered them each what he thought they wanted most, but when he offered Krug wealth, food, and power, Krug laughed at his offer. Furious, Iblis revealed his true form, challenging Krug to open combat. For 30 years the brothers fought Iblis until the skies over the war-torn realm opened up with the blow of a thunderous horn. An army of Enghouls and daemons from the 7 skies appeared. Their majesty was so beyond the mortal's perception that all that was seen was a flash of white light erupting from the east. Chains burst from the ground, wrapping around Iblis and carrying him down to an eternity in the nether. In a final act of rage, he cursed the 4 brothers and their descendants before being banished from the mortal realm. The Enghouls and daemons returned to the 7 skies, leaving the ruined realm behind. All became quiet again. Then the Creator looked down upon what he had made and showed mercy. He gathered 5 soul stones, one for each race, so that the survivors could once again come together. He then formed the guild known as the Cloud Temple Monks, tasking them as caretakers of the mortals. But hidden in the darkest depths of the nether, Iblis slowly grew in power, lying in wait for over a millennia, until across ages, undead minions under his control emerged from the underworld to stage a new war which would tear the very world asunder. Banding together in retaliation, the descendants sent their strongest warriors deep into the bowels of the nether to destroy the nexus that gave the undead their power. No one is quite sure if the warriors succeeded in destroying the nexus, but when they returned, more undead ambushed the Cloud Temple for a final time. An almighty tremor rose from the underworld that crumbled the foundations of Aegis. In fear, the descendants fled through a portal to a place they named the Verge, and once all had passed through, the gateway was destroyed from the other side, leaving Aegis to fall into oblivion. Now free from Iblis's hate, the refugees sought a new home. 6 years on an island in the Verge was spent preparing sea vessels for the long voyage. Upon mighty ships they sailed north, and after a few months at sea reached a fertile yet haunting continent. They had found a new land for their asylum, and for a time all was quiet. Ruins scattered across the landscape bore evidence of a past era. Aged tomes were discovered in a dusty library of an ancient monk temple. The landmass they had found was called Asulon, meaning sanctuary. But the curse of Iblis had also made its way here. The only remnants of sentient beings were a divergent of dark elves known as the Moricosir and a feline race known as the Karajir. Long ago all others perished, leaving the land littered with the haunting reminders of countless forgotten souls. For half a century in Asulon, the descendants of the 4 brothers had built themselves mighty nations and all but forgotten the evil they had left behind. Unbeknown to them, there was yet another enemy that pursued them. Cultists hell-bent on reaping vengeance for the destruction of their home had slipped through the Verge portal unnoticed. They hid themselves in plain sight among the descendant races and patiently waited for their opportunity behind hoods and masks. An ancient tome told tales of a spire that might cure the curses of Iblis. With this knowledge, the cultists attacked to crush the mortal's new hope. Without warning, they descended upon the monk temple with a mysterious dark magic and hideous dragons. The spire was destroyed and the temple soaked in blood, yet many of the cultists managed to slip away unharmed. Now fearing for the safety of the races, the monks sought help from the gods. Lady Eldicia, the fourth member of the Triumvirate, heeded their cry. She promised to fulfill the first ancient prophecy when the celestial army appeared in the sky as a light in the east. And so the races of Aegis, now joined by the Karajir, again journeyed across the seas, this time headed towards dawn's first light. Years wore on at sea, and the journeymen were becoming desperate to lay anchor. The voyage was interrupted by a rest stop on the Isles of Elysium and later an island named Kalos. But the stay was not to last, and once repairs were completed and storehouses restocked, the descendants continued by ship towards the land of Anthos. However, it was a continent that refused peace. War between the nations broke out over all manner of excuses, and while the descendants were fighting one another, a new foe shrouded the frozen north in darkness. Cetherian by name, last remnant of the Drakar, a godlike people who were half dragon, half daemon. His feud with mortals stretched back beyond history. Cetherian sent his minions into the lowlands to extract knowledge about the new settlers. From behind the frozen north, he engaged a bloody war to bathe all mortals and land they touched in hellfire. The nations were ravaged by war and flame, but whispers arose of a weapon that could end the Drakar's hold over Anthos. An Engul known as Zan had originally fought against Cetherian in ancient times and crafted a weapon with which to destroy him, but when his skirmish failed, the weapon, known as the Golden Lance, was hidden for safekeeping. As the descendants struggled to defend their nations, adventurers sought out 3 relics that would ultimately lead them to the Lance. But none could predict that the artifacts would instead open a gateway to a new land referred to as the Fringe. The new realm provided more than an escape. It was here that the weapon was discovered. In a mighty battle against Cetherian, the lance found its mark upon the Drakar's chest. The daemon released a hideous cry as it was defeated, dissolving into ash that fell from the sky. But the victory was bittersweet. With Cetherian fallen, the frozen north thawed, releasing floodwaters that buried the continent in a grave of water. And so the gateway to the Fringe, that once held their last hope, became their only haven. With no hope to return to Anthos, the descendants were anxious to move on. A new portal was opened, and through it the land of Thales. But the winds were bitter cold, and the earth refused to bear crops, and soon the hand of poverty clawed upon them. A wall bearing primitive inscriptions told of a land that may have bore the origins of all life. That discovery was all they needed to embark upon their seaward journey. Across the oceans upon great ships they soar, towards the forgotten halls of their ancestors. But it matters not how far they travel, or to what great lands the journey takes them, for there is a darkness that pursues them still.